start. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to another history video. Today we are going to be looking at the timeline of the largest passenger ships in history. Okay, so from 1831 to 1837, the SS Royal William was the largest ship. And then from 1837 to 1839, the SS Great Western was the largest ship, surpassing the Royal William. 2 years later, in 1839, the SS British Queen surpassed the SS Great Western. And it was the largest ship for only a year until 1940, when the SS President was surpassed her. And then 3 years later, in 1843, the SS Great Britain surpassed the SS President. And they had a merchant fleet. And then 10 years later, in 1853, the armies at Toronto surpassed the SS Great Britain. And it sank in 1884. And then 5 years later, the Great Eastern surpassed the Toronto. And it was scrapped from 1889 to 1890. And it became and then in 1888, the SS City of New York surpassed the Great Eastern. And then it will, and then when in 1893. In 1893, the city of New York was sold to the United States, but was scrapped at Genoa in 1923. And then in 1893, the RMS Campania surpassed it. And then on November 5th, 1918, close to the end of World War I, the Campania sunk in a collision with the HMS Glorious. And then in 1897, the SS Kaiser Wilhelm der Grosse surpassed the Campania, and it was the first ship to have 4 funnels. And it was scuttled in the Battle of Rio de Oro on August 26, 1914. And then at the end, And then at the end of the 1800s, the Oceanic surpassed the Kaiser Wilhelm Grosse. And it was ran aground off full Shetland on September 8, 1914. And then 1901, which was the beginning of the 1900s, the Celtic surpassed the Oceanic. And it was ran aground on December 10th, 1928 and was scrapped on the site. And yeah, it was actually on my birthday. And then 2 years later, the Cedric surpassed the Celtic. Whoa, what similar names these are. And the fate of the Cedric was sold to Thomas W. Ward and scrapped at Inverkeithing in 1932. And then a year later, it was surpassed by the Baltic, and it was scrapped in Osaka, Japan. And then 2 years later, the Empress of Scotland surpassed the Baltic. It was owned by the German Empire until 1919, when it was seized by the United States. And the USA acquired it in 1919, but it was sold to Commuter Line a year later. And then a year later, it was sold to the Canadian Pacific Steamships. And then it was scrapped in 1930. Blit. Wow, what great history! It was owned by 1, 2, 3, 4 countries, and Canada scrapped it. And then a year later, it was surpassed by the Lusitania. And then 1915, it was torpedoed by a German U-boat U-20 on Friday, May 7, 1915, and the wreck lies approximately 11 miles off the old Kinsale Lighthouse and 305 feet of water at 550, 125, and 833 W. That's the coordinates of the crash, of the wreck. Okay, let's go back and go down. But then later, in 1907, the Mauritania surpassed the Lusitania. But it was scrapped in 1935 at Rosyth, Scotland. And in 1911, the Olympic surpassed the Mauritania. But it was scrapped, and the superstructure dismantled at Jarrow, and in Jarrow, England, and the whole was scrapped at Inverkeithing, Scotland, which I told them about earlier. And then a year later, it was surpassed by the Great Titanic, one of my favorite ships. But uh, but I think as many as you know, the the Titanic hit an iceberg at 11:40 p.m. on the ship's time on April 14, 1912, on her maiden voyage, and, and sank 2 hours and 40 minutes later on April 15, 1912, which was 108 years ago. Yeah. And if you don't know yet, I already have a book about the Titanic. Okay, now the next year it was surpassed by the Imperator. And it was owned by 3 countries. And as a German ship, it was used as a troop transport for the United States at the end of World War I. This Imperator aided along with her sister ship Vaterland, and now the United States ship Latvian. The ships ferried troops back to the States from Brest, France. After the war, Imperator was purchased and handed over to Carolina, renamed as RMS Berengaria. And it was ceded to the Carolina as a war prize and renamed Berengaria. And then it was scrapped between 1939 and 1946. Well, what a long time it got scrapped. And then the next year, the Latvian surpassed it. And it was owned by 2 countries. By the German power, it was called the Vaterland, but it was seized by the United States to be used in the U.S. Navy. And then it was renamed the USS Latvian and was used and it was sold into civilian service. And then the SS Latvian was sold for scrapping and broken up on June 6, 1938 at Rosyth. And then 8 years later, the Majestic surpassed the Latvian. And it was owned by 2 countries. But it was awarded to Great Britain in 1920, and it was called the Bismarck until 1922. And it is named as the Majestic in the page. And it was awarded to Great Britain in 1920 as a reparation for the sinking of the HMHS Britannic, which was built during World War, which was built in 1922. And then in 1935, the year when the Moscow Metro opened, the Normandic surpassed the Majestic. But it was caught fire, capsized in 1942, and scrapped in October 1946. And then a year later, the Queen Mary surpassed them in Normandy. But it doesn't have a fate. It's actually still alive. And then 10 years later, the Queen Elizabeth surpassed the Queen Mary. But not. But then it caught fire and capsized, and the wreck was partially dismantled.